welcome back to Turf Shack. Today I am going to share some thoughts and a song about unrequited love and mercy and God's faithfulness. So this song is called You Knew, and it has been stewing in me for a while via a lot of different music that I've been listening to lately, and then a lot of different things about God's character that he's been showing me, and also the way people have responded to the past few months of life on earth. So I guess I will start with sort of the internal imagery that sparked this song. So the way that it kind of situates in my soul and mind space is similar to what I heard John Mark McMillan, is actually inspired by what I heard John Mark McMillan share in an interview about the song that he wrote that is called How He Loves. If you have not heard it, I definitely recommend listening to it and listening to his version of it. That's been recorded by a lot of different people, but I think there's something really special about listening to a song that somebody wrote that when they sing it, especially like a song that they either got from God or that they wrote in process with God. And so if I remember correctly, what he was sharing in the interview is that the song was initially inspired by, or a result of, is probably a better way to say it, him processing this grief that he had when one of his, or a couple of his really close friends got in a car accident and passed away. So he was actually saying that like he wrote that song from the perspective of his dying friend, like experiencing this like wave of, and hurricane, like, you know, if you've heard the song, then you know like the imagery that he uses about God's love, and just like thinking of his friend experiencing the far-reaching love of God even in that tragedy and trauma of transitioning from life on earth to eternity through a car wreck. And so I was thinking of just like that sort of like middle space, you know what I mean? Of like your spirit coming out of this earth suit and being before God, which is like, whoa. And it's awesome if you know Jesus and have received him as your personal savior. If you have not, done. So I was thinking about that. And then the second sort of color, or I guess, or brush stroke was inspired by the movie Theory of Everything. That is a biopic of this world-renowned physicist who had like a degenerative disease that he got diagnosed with as a university student. And the movie kind of like starts there and follows his marriage with his first wife and his career and his declining health and these like grand contributions that he makes. And unfortunately, it seems through the movie and in real life, like he never came to a point of humbling himself to acknowledge his need for God and to acknowledge that he was gifted by God. And the way that his health was, it almost seemed as if there was this sort of like spitefulness or bitterness that he was like locked into. Excuse me. But I was thinking about unrequited love in that context specifically because in the movie, and I guess in real life, you know, I don't know that they would have made that whole section up, but he cheats on his wife with his like hospice worker, and then has the nerve to tell her through the computer, because he can't speak, that he's leaving her. And so she just looks at him, she's like, I have loved you. And that was kind of like the end of that conversation as far as the movie went. And then they divorced and went on their separate trajectories. And then you see like him having like more and more success academically and intellectually, but having like this declining health and just kind of like squandering the love that is given to him. So I was thinking about that. And then I was also thinking about that in relation to Romans chapter 1, which is so rich, but I'm just going to share 2 verses only. I'm going to cap myself. 2 verses. So Romans 1 verses 20 and 21, and this is from the New Living Translation. And it says, For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God. Yes, they knew God, but they wouldn't worship him as God or even give him thanks. And they began to think up foolish ideas of what God was like. As a result, their minds became dark and confused. And then it talks about specific ways in which people just, it doesn't take much for them to just fall into deception and debauchery and ridiculousness. I'm actually going to read it also in the ESV because I like different parts of what the translations bring out through the words that they use. So like with that one, I like how it says like, they can clearly see through everything God made and that they have no excuse for not knowing him just because he's so faithful and he's fair, he's just. And so in the ESV, it says, oh wait, maybe this is not, whatever, I'll just read it anyways. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give him thanks. And then it says like claiming to be wise, they became fools and stuff like that. There's some, I think there's a translation that says like God has made it obvious to us, but maybe I'm misremembering that. Anyway, so that is the main colors, I guess, is the analogy I'm going with, of this song. And then I thought I would explain 2 points of the lyrical riddle that I incorporated. Excuse me while I take a sip of the dregs of my butter pecan latte that I got this morning and refrigerated and is now iced and awesome. Okay, so in the song, bring it down. In the song, there is a lyric that is split with, I don't know enough about how you would articulate the structure of a song, but basically there's this verse and then there's a melodic interlude and then a continuation of that thought into the next verse. So it says, I'll just read the whole verse. One day you knew, you saw small truth, sunlight and morning dew, wake up the soul and steam open the clues. And then the next part goes, I wrote letters to you, I howled your name in the bright of the moon. It was all true, I loved you. So that thought is just kind of like reiterating what Romans says about God making himself obvious through creation, but then also different parts of scripture and the principle that once you accept the truth you do see, you position yourself to receive more truth and to see more. So that's kind of what I was thinking about. And then also just, I remember seeing when I was younger, this like, I don't know if it was like a cartoon or a movie or something, but somebody was trying to open somebody's mail that didn't belong to them and they didn't want other people to know they opened it. So they like steamed the envelope open. And I was thinking about that in terms of like the sunlight and dew being the steam that kind of like, for me, so like I think everybody has different things about the created world or relationships or their experience somehow of being alive on this planet that kind of like sparks in them like this intrigue and this depth of awareness of God because he designed it that way. And so then the other part of the song that I wanted to explain is this verse that says, I warned you of the famines and wars and monsoons. I wept with you and even sent mercy to rescue you too. So that was intended to encapsulate the idea that God sees us as individuals embedded in a particular class of being. So to take it back to where I started with which was with John Mark McMillan explaining the concept of his song being from the perspective of his friend, and thinking of like how we all individually are accountable to God and have to answer to him for whether or not we rejected him or accepted him, and salvation through Jesus. But at the same time, it is also very clear that God sees us as Adam, like each of us as Adam. And I don't want to go beyond my ability to articulate what it is that is in my heart because it's big and a lot. But basically, with this particular verse, I'm addressing the fact that God was very clear at the outset that there would be death if we chose not to obey him. But there is something very powerful and I think largely misunderstood and largely dismissed or diminished about free will and about what free will communicates about love. And so God warned us. He didn't go into great detail at first because that's not where his heart is. His heart is not in destruction and devastation. It's kind of like, you know, if a kid asks you something that's not good, but you want to give them an answer, but you don't want to fill their tiny soul with details for them to ruminate about, right? Like, I don't know, I can't think of a specific example, but you know what I mean? Like a kid asks you about something that's hard to explain and you use euphemisms or gentle language to give them enough for where they are. And then I wept with you is just like God's heart expressed all throughout the story of the Bible and in Jesus, like Jesus literally weeping when Lazarus died, even though he knew he was going to raise him back up like 3 seconds later. But also just God's heart of like being fed up with all the shenanigans and debauchery at every turn. And then him sending Jesus to rescue us when we got ourselves in this mess. So I think ultimately the song is me responding to a frustration I have had of people blaming God for everything that's wrong in the world when he delegated dominion to us. And I think, again, that we maybe don't understand what we really are and like what it really means for us to be made in the image of God. And so as we have questions, it's perfectly fine and healthy to ask God questions, but to the point that I made in a previous video, I think it's really important to do that from a posture of humility and from seeking God, not questioning him in a way that demands answers of him. And something that I heard that was really helpful to me is always stay on God's side. And so that's kind of what this song is that what more could he have done, right? Like at this point in history, he has done literally everything that he can do, and mature love does not force itself on anyone. So hopefully that is enough context and clarity, and hopefully the song will make up for the gaps. Because like I get excited talking about all the things that I'm thinking, but I think I have to recognize where my gift is, and it's not necessarily in expounding upon all of the theoretical concepts that come to me as thoughts and inspiration, but just sharing the song and trusting that the Lord will use the poetry and the magic, I guess, and mystery of what music is to communicate the rest of it. So the song is called You Knew. I hope you enjoy it. My super cozy situation. Okay. thank you guys for listening. I will talk to you soon.